on, everybody. Young, old, all you lovers. This is our time.
Did we live? I bet.
Okay.
I am here with, I'll let you introduce yourself. So tell us your name and let us know a little bit about you.
Okay. My name is Aniya Cheri. I am 26 years old and I am the founder of Mountain Gaming.
So now that you tell us who you are, Miss Aniya, you have Mountain Gaming. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to start it?
Yeah, so my background is in psychology and Black studies. I was passionate about understanding like why people are the way they are, why they do the things that they do. So I went into psychology, wanted to understand more about the reasons behind why the world is how it is, why people, what motivates people, what drives people. I think my college studies were very targeted towards like self-exploration, like wanting to understand myself, and Black studies especially because I wasn't taught Black studies. Like it wasn't something that we learned in schools besides the, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, that's it.
That's real. So since we speak about your degree and everything that you learned in school, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal experiences growing up? I know you mentioned some things before about, your father and a situation like that. So tell us a little bit about what led you to even get into that idea with your degree in school.
Yeah, so when I first started undergrad and getting my degree in psychology, we had to do a research paper, and my focus for the topic I chose to research was the psychological effects of prison, because I wanted to understand, I knew my dad before he went to prison, while he was in prison, and after prison, and it seemed like he was a different person, like in coming out of prison, even while he was there. So I like to, with whatever I'm studying in school, pick a topic or a focus that I'm interested in, so it doesn't make it so like I hate this. So in studying the psychological effects of prison, I learned about how a lot of people go into prison and they don't have like mental health issues, but they come out with mental health issues, and it affects their social relationships. The environment of prison is not one that encourages vulnerability, and it's one that is very uncertain. And so those things together affect the person that's there, and if the parent that's in prison isn't okay, it affects how they parent, it affects their child. So from there, in like a different class, I studied the psychological effects of growing up without a father, because for someone like me, who not only grew up without my father, I also grew up with a father who was in prison. So it was important for me to like understand those two parallels, like not just not growing up without a father, because those have, there's consequences and effects of that in and of itself, but then to also have a parent who's incarcerated. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question. It also leads to several follow-ups, and okay. I guess with the idea that you have the balance of the father that was in prison and the experiences that you have, how were you able to kind of use that to influence the work that you're doing with Mountain Gaming?
That's a great question. So I used it to influence the work that I'm doing with the game, because there are very, I would say, distinct differences between the experience of someone who goes to college and someone who doesn't. Like, I almost didn't go to college. I was the problem child. I didn't want to go to school. So it was like, when I recognized that the only reason why I became educated in Black studies was because I went to school for it. You know, I realized that there's a whole group of people, a whole population of people that will never know this stuff because they just didn't go to school for it. And so to me, that was a problem. And so I wanted to look for a way to bridge the gap between the average person in my life because, you know, like I said, I'm from Chicago. So I was one of the first people in my family to graduate college. And it was like, all right, well, what can I do to teach my cousins Black studies? Because here I am, they like love to talk about how I'm always the person with like graphs and charts and like educational facts, and so it just, you know, kind of goes in one ear and out the other. I'm here and I'm talking, but I know they're not getting it. And like, you know, when you are in an academic setting, you learn these big words and, you know, the economy of dignity and, you know, stuff that's like, okay, Aniya, you know, like it means nothing. So it was like, I wanted to solve the problem of incorporating Black history into our everyday life and like in a way that's fun. Like, how do I trick you into learning? Because if I just am like, hey, let's learn, it's like, girl, bye. Like,
Thanks. But if you throw something digital like a game in there, you capture a lot of attention. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We'll segue from there into, so far we learned about mountain gaming. We learned about who Aniya is and some of the things that's led us there. So now with your experiences with mountain gaming, how long have you been doing this, or how long has mountain gaming been created? And have you had any experiences or challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I've been working on mountain gaming for about 3 years now, three and a half years. And I it's always, I don't ever really know what time frame to tell people because I feel like I've been working on it and I just didn't have a name for it. So when I started working on it about 3 years ago, and it started off as an event. I was like, I'm gonna just host a big cool event and it's gonna be historical and it's gonna be fun. And then I realized that no one was interested. No one was interested. No one was trying to come to a historical event for fun. And it was very challenging, even trying to come up with ways to make Black history fun and not like a quiz. Like, I didn't want people to feel like, you know, inadequate because they don't know, because why would they know that? Like, there's a lot of things where it's like, why would I know? Why would I know the answer? And no one wants to feel like, you know, not smart or like they're losing. Like, no one's gonna play a game that they know they're gonna lose. So I didn't want it to be like a quiz. So it was like, all right, I had to pivot, and I had to get comfortable pivoting based on what people wanted and what people liked. So yeah, it started off as an event. Then it was like, all right, cool, it's gonna be a board game. But then it was like, all right, realistically, when I looked at the people around me, because that's who I care about impacting. Like, I want to make a larger impact in the world, yes. And when I look at my family, like my little cousins, my brothers, I'm the oldest of 6, and I'm the oldest of all of my like little girl cousins. And so it's like, well, how often do I see my brothers playing board games? Never. How often do I see my cousins playing board games? Never. So I was like, all right, back to the drawing board, because clearly board games aren't going to be, that's not where they're going to buy in at. So from there it was like, all right, I think the best way to go is like a digital game, a mobile game, a PC game, a video game. And immediately I was in tears, crying and praying, because I was like Googling how much it costs to develop games.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a costly experience.
Bruh, I was like, God, if you want this to be done, you're going to have to do it, because I don't have even that much, I don't have a quarter of that much money in my bank account. So, and I don't know how to code at the time. Like, I don't know how to do none of this. So
the challenge would be the fact that you weren't super versed in gaming and you weren't super versed in coding, and you're having to learn those things as you're going through creating a game. I want to ask, like, using the word mountain, of course, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, I don't know, just a big whatever, ground, dirt, whatever, tall as it can be. But there's also the other side of me that's like climbing an obstacle when it comes to mountain. So what does the word mountain and mountain gaming mean to you?
yeah, that's a good question. So God actually named mountain gaming. I went and I was like, God, this was your idea. Mountain gaming was not my idea. Like the whole concept of like games and all that, like God was like, make games that teach Black history. But that was very vague. And so that's how I was like, all right, whatever. But when it got to, okay, it's a video game, and like, what do I name the game? I opened my devotional that day, and it talked about asking for mountains and how people would often ask God for things that were like easy, like, yeah, you know, you want your hair to grow, like, here you go, like, but asking for a mountain is asking for something that's like immovable, asking for something that's like way far out there. And so on the day that I actually found it, well, not found it, but officially did the paperwork to establish the LLC, that was the devotional that day. So that's what, that's where I landed at mountain gaming. But from there, I felt like I constantly was having like revelations as to why the word mountain. And it became like, for me, a symbol of perseverance and the journey and reaching a goal, like reaching the top of something, reaching that goal that you're working towards. So even throughout the journey building the game, I remind myself, like, if I was climbing Mount Everest, I would have to take breaks. I would have to take care of myself, because the higher you go in altitude, the less you can breathe. So it gets harder, the climb gets harder. And so it's been a symbol of encouragement even for me as things become difficult in doing something, to create something that doesn't exist. It's hard, and even being a creative, it's hard. Having, you know, invisible disabilities is hard. So looking at mountain gaming as a symbol of resilience and perseverance, and it's achievable and it's attainable, but knowing that it's a journey and it's not just you know, I'm here, I've arrived, and it will take time.
I can understand the idea of a mountain. Definitely speaking on the journey, it's something I can definitely relate to. All right, so we talked about your educational, your background, your growing up, and everything that embodies who Aniya is. I know you spoke about the board games and how they wouldn't captivate a larger audience. So how do you balance the educational aspect of mountain gaming and what it's going to be, or what it is now, with the entertainment aspect to captivate the audience?
Yeah. So what I do is I do a lot of research, a lot of Black history research, and I look for firsthand accounts if I can. So just as an example, one of the books that I use for the development of Insubordinate was a book of narratives of firsthand experiences from the Underground Railroad. So I read about different people like Peter Steele and Margaret Garner, who they either shared their stories with someone or they wrote letters to someone, but it was compiled into this book. So I take the true Black history content, and I look for opportunities to rebel. So just as an example, there was a man who was captured, and he was beaten and put in a cellar, and when they pulled him out of the cellar, he had like maggots growing in his skin. And so for me, it was like, I would want to beat up the person who did this to him, and I would want to set him free. So for me, that's an opportunity in the game to not just teach about what happened to this man, but to give you know, the viewer, the player, an opportunity to do something about it, because it's hard to learn about the violence inflicted upon Black people and the oppression and the injustice. Like, it's a heavy topic. It's a very heavy topic, especially when it's, you know, because it's historical, we're in a sense going back in time to a point in time where all we can do is learn about it, but there's nothing that we can do other than just have this historical dump on us. And we're left, for me personally, I would be left feeling like, you know, sad or deflated. Like, watching movies about slaves, it would just make me mad, and there was nothing that I could do about it. So I balanced the entertainment part with the educational part by making sure that the content is educational, but that the game part is autonomous and entertaining, and that it's not a typical experience with Black historical content. It's having autonomy with how you engage with that Black historical content.
Okay, well, that's right on cue. So you mentioned Insubordinate, which we haven't properly introduced it. So Insubordinate, this is your baby right now.
Yes.
Give a little insight about Insubordinate.
Yes, so Insubordinate Time Rebel is Mountain Gaming's official first PC game. So we are launching our game demo on June 19th of 2023, which is this year.
Give a round of applause there.
Yeah. So Insubordinate is going to be a story that is based in, well, it's a game, and the setting is in 1865 in the United States in the South. And we are looking at the story of Charles Freeman. So Charles Freeman is not a real person. He is the, what is it, like the player that you're playing, like a my player.
Okay, took care of it.
So yeah, he's the player in the game. But Margaret Garner, she's a real person. So you are going to be Charles Freeman in the game, and you're going to go through missions and escaping slavery, helping other slaves escape to freedom, enslaved Africans, not slaves, helping other enslaved Africans escape and get to freedom. And yeah, there's like little mini missions. I don't want to give away too much.
Don't give away too much. Just give them enough cookie to chew on. So, is there a target audience that you're expecting, you know, for this game to really cater to?
Yes, adults. It is rated M for mature audiences, because I didn't want to water down the rawness and the realness of the Black historical content. Like, there was no, like, when you really think about it, they used to, when they lynched Black people, they would make it like a parade, almost like a festival. So they would dress their kids in their Sunday's best, and they go to the tree where they would hang the Black person, and after they died, they would like shoot and burn the body, and they like listen to music. Like, it was very like explicit, you know. There was nothing like hush hush or secretive or let's make sure that it's appropriate for the ages with this content. And so I didn't want to take from the realness and the vulgarity of it by making it, you know, sweet and child appropriate. I feel like it would take from the actual experience. And for like non-Black people that are playing the game, I felt like it was important to be as authentic as I could, because I wanted to be an opportunity to build empathy, because we have so many like non-Black allies, even with the Underground Railroad. Like, all white people aren't bad.
Right.
So I wanted them to be able to have a different experience in their support. And you can't really ever put yourself in a black person's shoes, but with the game you can. So you feel the things that, you know, you have this shared goal, you have this shared oppressor, you have these shared villains, and so it was an opportunity to like build empathy. So all in all, the game is for a mature audience.
That makes perfect sense. I think one thing that games can do that a lot of times we stray away, or not we, but the movie scene strays away from getting into how vulgar it really can get, and how intense it can get in the reality or the authenticity of the situation. It's something that gaming allows people to be able to capture, which leads me to my next question is like, how do you envision mountain gaming just as a brand to have its social impact, or a more equitable future?
Yeah, so I envision mountain gaming as being a entertainment company that is innovative for the family. So even though we're starting off targeting mature audiences, eventually I do want to create games and products that are appropriate for children. And I believe that through these games and products that are rooted in like positive psychology. So what I'm really trying to do is like give people like positive psychological benefits. I want them to be healthy. I want them to walk away from the game feeling empowered, having positive feelings, because there's something called like the self-determination theory, and I won't go too much into it now, but when we talk about the vision of mountain gaming, it is to be a positive psychological intervention and to promote just better health and wellness for people. So yeah, I would say that like my vision with mountain gaming is to let it be a positive psychological intervention that helps people grow empathy, autonomy, and empowerment, and those things will have positive benefits in their social relationships, their professional performance. So actually using like psychology and research to benefit people in their overall well-being, and not just be a fun, entertaining game, but to use something with like, okay, so when I first started grad school to like learn all the design and tech stuff that I didn't know, people were like, why'd you start? You know, what made you join this program? And it's like, I want to change the world. Like, I wanted to change the world. And it was such a cliche thing to say, but I really did want to change the world. And I knew that in order to have an impact on the community, I needed money. Like nothing's free. So it's like, I had to be creative in like, how do I get the funds? How do I raise the money to be the help in the community that I feel like is needed? Like for me, having a single parent, I grew up in a single parent household because my father was in prison. And then also like my mom's husband, my stepdad, he was also in and out of prison. So pretty much a single parent household. And oftentimes my mom would have to make decisions between whether or not the lights were going to get paid or if she was going to pay my cheer fees. And I just couldn't do cheer. So I had to sacrifice a lot as a child, and the things that brought me joy and happiness that served as my outlet to get away from the realities of not having my parents, or the stress and the emotional suffering that I experienced, and traumas, even having to, you know, see my dad in prison and deal with that. There was nowhere for me to take those feelings. So with mountain gaming and what it is that we're doing, it was supposed to, my intention with it is for it to be the business that supports the social impact. So having a product that people will buy because it's a great product, like it's a great game and it's good for you. And on top of that, it's going to contribute proceeds. The proceeds are going to go towards making sure kids can do extracurricular activities, making sure that parents don't have to, choose between food or gas to take their kids to AAU, or the kid even going to AAU. So being able to provide the resources to kids that have incarcerated parents or a parent.
I love it. So how do you balance, I guess, running a successful business, or how do you envision running a successful business while focusing, or because it's really easy for a lot of businesses, they start off well, they have great intentions, and then they're doing well, then the money starts rolling in, and then their vision shifts a little bit. So how do you balance like running a successful business and keeping that positive impact on society?
It's a great question. I would say that making sure that my vision is clear, making sure that I don't deviate from what that vision is. And so if the vision is to create games and to use a portion of the proceeds to help the community, that means having clear metrics of success. So, at what point are we making money? And if we're making money, what percentage of that are we dedicating to providing resources for these kids? And not just holding myself accountable, but making sure that the people that I work with are also clear in that vision, and we're equally holding each other accountable to that, and making sure that that's our North Star. No pun intended.
I like what you did there.
Yeah.
Diversity, right? I know you spoke on having the impact on, not just Black people, but allowing that our allies, whatever the race may be, to be involved in your vision with Mountain Gaming. Is there a way that Mountain Gaming strives to promote that diversity outside of just encouraging everyone to be a part of the story?
Yes. So I make sure that I seek diverse perspectives. So I look for people that are not Black to give feedback on the game, to give, to tell me about their motivations behind playing the game. Do you feel represented in this? Do you feel like I'm just making all white people look like bad people? And even in developing the prototypes and like storyboards, making sure that the people that are reflected are diverse. So making sure that I'm having white people portrayed in a positive light, and that they are alongside us and helping us. It's funny because I put together like an initial story deck before, the game story deck. There's been a lot of story decks. And so
as you should, a part of the planning process. I get it.
Yeah, in one of the game story decks, I share with my sister's husband, who's white, and he goes, "Oh, that's me." Like in one of the scenes, and I was like, yes, like I'm happy that when you saw this scene, you identified with the person there, because I was very intentional about making sure that there was a white person there that was alongside, the Black hero in it, and that it meant a lot to me that there was a point of connection, because I want there to be points of connection, not just for Black people, but for, non-Black people. And then even as far as the staff and the people that I hire to develop the games, like I'm intentional about making sure that I have diverse developers, that I have just diverse skill sets and diverse people, not just race-wise, but also gender, because gender in gaming is, it's a thing. It's a thing. Like there's the game gators who don't really want women in gaming or social impact games. So making sure that I look for opportunities to bring in women and girl gamers also to share their perspective. So I'm very intentional about bringing in diverse perspectives and making sure that there's diverse representation in the games.
I love it. I love it.
Freedom!
It's the best showing time.
Let's show me the freedom! Well, 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 well.